Okay, so you've been thinking about starting your Airbnb business for quite a while now, but there's this pesky little question that's still looming over your head, and that's how much do I actually need to get started? So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down for you at a very granular level exactly how much you need to start your Airbnb business in 2025 and as we head into 2026. So I've spoken with hundreds of people, and this is honestly where most people get stuck. Like, exactly how much do I need to actually start my Airbnb business? The truth is that question depends on exactly like how you want to build your business. So let me explain. So there are two core models when you're looking at starting an Airbnb business. Both models do require a down payment. There's actually a secret third model that I want to talk about at the end of the video, and this is how you can essentially start your Airbnb business with literally no money out of pocket. But we'll talk about that at the end of the video after I cover these two main topics. So method number one is buying a property. So if you're going to be buying a property for the purpose of Airbnb, you do have to keep in mind the costs that are going to be associated with this. So that typically requires a down payment anywhere from 10, 15, 20% depending on the state and really just your financial situation. The closing costs, so like lawyer fees, things like that, the paperwork, that's going to be anywhere from about 2 to 5% of the overall price of the house that you're going to be buying. Then you have your furnishing costs, which is going to be the cost of you furnishing the property and getting it set up for Airbnb. And then of course you want to have a small maintenance reserve or emergency fund ready in case there's any expenses that you didn't see coming or anything happens. You want to make sure you have a little bit of set aside for that. So now there are financing options that you can use that can significantly like decrease your upfront capital. But like I said, this method is a little bit more capital intensive, but it does have longer term benefits like capital appreciation. So over time properties will increase, so you're gonna get the value of that. And also your debt pay down, because as you pay the mortgage for this property, you actually build equity and you can refinance that equity later on. So that's a whole nother conversation. But there are benefits to buying a property outright, to buying or financing a property that you can get in the long run. But now for the other model, which most people, especially starting off, tend to gear towards, and this is the method that I started with, it's going to be arbitrage. So with arbitrage, you're not buying a property and it takes a significantly lower down payment to start. This is where you're simply renting out a property from a landlord, owner, an investor. You're gonna be furnishing it yourself, and the furnishing costs are gonna cost you anywhere from 5, 7, if you're looking at smaller bedroom apartments, to 20, 30, 40, and $50,000. So the ranges could be almost endless. But before we look at that specifically, the question you should be asking yourself is, what kind of business do I want to build? And this now gears off into two tiers. So you can build your business by having simply just apartments, smaller apartments, 1, 2 bedroom apartments, maybe even 3 bigger bedroom apartments, and then just scale by getting 2, 3, 5 at a time. Or you can go the other route, which is aiming for bigger homes and building an experience type business. So I'm talking about 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom, sometimes even 6 bedroom houses, and then scaling by just getting bigger homes. Both of these will require significantly different type of business. So in the apartments, you can scale by getting apartments. It is going to be a lower upfront cost, but keep in mind, where there's a lower upfront cost, there's higher competition. So yes, you can start for a lower amount, and yes, you can still find success, but your profit margins will be a little bit thinner, and there will be a lot more competitors in the space. So you do want to keep that in mind. So scaling by getting apartments does have its pros and cons. And on the other end, you have getting bigger houses, 3 bedroom, 5 bedrooms upwards. That one does have higher startup costs because you're furnishing bigger houses, but the competition tends to be either a little bit lower or, depending on the market, a lot lower, and the profit margins will be significantly higher in most cases for the bigger units. So you want to really ask yourself what you want to target. If you want to start now and you don't have that much capital, the apartments might be the best bet. But if you do have a little bit more saved up and you want to start and get 1 or 2 houses and have that fully replace your income, you can do that, but you'd have to go for the bigger houses or just get a ton of apartments, which logistically speaking, if you're getting started, it might be a little bit harder. But I hope this kind of makes sense, where you can have smaller apartments, lower upfront costs, a little bit more competition, but it's an easier barrier to entry, or bigger apartments or bigger houses, a little bit of a higher upfront cost, less competition. And I also have a free Skool community where we talk about things like this almost every single day, and we have live calls every single week talking about these specific topics. And so if you're someone that's been interested in Airbnb for some time and you want to learn more information, then simply just check out the description below and you'll be able to see and get more information on our Skool community there. Now that you have this information, there are several factors that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at your your startup costs for Airbnb in 2025 entering 2026. So these are the main factors from my experience that influence your startup costs. The type of market that you're in, whether it's going to be a vacation market or something like an urban market. So where vacation market is more seasonal and has higher highs and higher lows because during in season there's a lot of traffic, but when it's a slower season, nobody's there. Or urban areas which tend to be very modest in terms of the demand year over year, but they don't have the big swings like vacation rentals do. So you want to keep that in mind in the type of market that you want to be investing in, because it will significantly affect what your startup costs look like. Then you have your furnishing standard. So you can have a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment and you can have your startup cost be $5,000, or you can have your startup cost be $10,000 to $15,000 depending on your market, as we talked about before. But also, how do you want to design this property? Do you want it to be a high-end apartment? Do you want it to be a low mid-tier apartment? Which, like I said before, does go back to which market you're in. But good rule of thumb is the more money you tend to put in wisely, the more money you're gonna make in the back end in terms of how much you can charge per night. Especially if you're in a more competitive market, city, or neighborhood, you wanna be able to put a little bit more in, but that will allow you to be a market differentiator, which allows you to charge more in the back end. But then you also have permits and fees. So every city, every state, every country will have different permits and fees and legal requirements for you to set up your Airbnb business. So you definitely want to take that into consideration as a startup cost when you're looking to start your Airbnb business. So definitely look at the regulations and how much that's going to cost you, because some states will cost you anywhere from $500 to even $1,000 just to set up. So you definitely want to keep this information in your back pocket as you move forward. And then last but not least is simply just how fast do you want to scale. Okay, the speed in which you scale will determine how much you can start up with, because if you're simply just getting one at a time, you can put a little bit more to get that one property. Whereas if you're scaling, like some of my students scaling 3, 5, or even 10 at a time, they put a little bit less, but they know they're going to get their money back because of the amount of volume that they're outputting. A really cool software that I use for this is called Magic BNB. Magic BNB is a software that we actually built to allow you and help you really just be able to figure out and pinpoint exactly what your startup cost is going to be, as long as your profit margins, nightly rates, daily rates, occupancy rates, and we just give you an entire picture of how to structure your business to be able to invest wisely and get your dollar back and know exactly what each cost is going to look like before you invest your dollar. So if that's something you're interested in, just search up Magic BNB. I could have the link below for you to check out. We actually have a free trial going on, so you can actually check out and run your numbers absolutely for free. But that would be a really cool asset for you to have once you're getting started. So hopefully that gives you an idea of different ways and different methods that you should be looking at in terms of exactly how much startup cost you need. So it's not a simple answer as 5 or 7,000, but it really is going to depend on what kind of business that you want to build heading into 2026. Now for the bonus. So there's actually ways that you can start your Airbnb business and put low to almost no money out of pocket. Keep in mind, this method is a little bit trickier, and I usually reserve this for students and people who have a little bit more experience or have better experience when it comes to sales and negotiation. But this is simply a method called co-hosting. So the really cool thing about co-hosting is you can negotiate with landlords, owners, and investors and have them furnish the properties, and you just manage it and take a percentage of it. The reason this is really cool is because you can negotiate anywhere from 10, 15, 20% of the gross revenue and have them furnish it, and they take about 80%. So they have the incentive because they get more than what they would if they get rent. You're incentivized because you have almost no cost starting out. So it could be a win-win situation if you hit this criteria. It's a very good market, very strong market. You have your numbers to a T, and you know that at that 80% for the landlord, they're gonna make more than they would in rent. You wanna make sure of that. And that you also have a very good idea and have very high confidence that you can also provide and perform and to be able to hit these target numbers. If you can do that and you do that one time, it's gonna be so much easier for landlords, investors, business owners to be able to trust you, so that when they buy more properties, they'll simply just hand them over to you, and you can just do this over and over and over again. And a little bonus is that you can actually charge for these services to actually set up the listing for Airbnb, manage it for 20%, and charge them like a 5 to 10K setup fee. So this is a bonus that I've been able to use myself, and it is a bonus that I teach my students in our free school community, Higher Profit Margins, that allows them to scale their business significantly faster, but with almost no money down. Now, you want to be careful with how you pitch this and how you present this to a landlord, because if you don't do this properly, this can and most likely will bite you in the ass. So you definitely want to seek a professional or someone who's done this before so that it's easier for you to scale in this direction. At the end of the day, whether you start with 5K, whether you start with 10K, whether you start with 50K or 100K, what matters honestly the most is how quickly can you break even and do your numbers line up to the reality that you're about to face. Because let's be honest, investing $10,000 and getting that money back in 7-8 years doesn't really make sense, right? So that's why we created a software called Magic BNB, and Magic BNB is meant to solve that exact problem, where it really just allows you to break down all of your costs. All you gotta do is input information like your bedroom count, your nightly rate, your occupancy rate, and it can give you an entire breakdown of exactly like what your cleaning cost is gonna be, what your startup cost is gonna be, and really just all the costs associated before you invest. That way you have a very strong idea of how long it's gonna take you to make your money back. So I hope you found this video very, very valuable, because now at this point you should have a better idea of exactly how much money you need to get started. It will require a little bit of homework and digging in your part in regards to where you want to get started and how you want to scale your business. And if you want to learn more about different ways you can scale your business and how to view Airbnb in 2026 in a way that will actually profit you and put you ahead of 90% of your competitors, click this video here and you'll be able to see exactly how to view Airbnb to be able to do this.